Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about one of the biggest influences I think in the fitness industry that's going on today. Well, it's not going on today. I think it's more of like a side effect of what happened about 30 years ago, and it is now kind of showing up today. And that's going to be Masters of the Universe, He-Man. I don't know if you guys remember He-Man. That's something that I kind of remember growing up in the 80s. I was born in 1981. I want to say He-Man came out around 1983, and anybody growing up in the 80s knows about He-Man and watched the show. It was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and there's more than a fitness aspect to He-Man. Then it's more than just a fitness aspect. There's also a business aspect to it that I want to let you guys know about because I've kind of researched it, and it's funny, but it's one of the most brilliant business plans and models that I've ever seen or heard about. One of the things that obviously He-Man did for a lot of people growing up in the 80s was it kind of influenced them into bodybuilding. If you looked at the different characters, there wasn't a single guy that wasn't jacked except for like that little ghost guy or whatever. The rest of the characters and the little dolls that they had, they were all extremely muscular and well developed. That was something that you never saw in a toy up until then. He-Man, believe it or not, the way He-Man was developed was it was a generic branded thing. They had a doll called Big Jim, and what they did was they added some muscles to the mold, okay, and instead of just junking the toy, because Big Jim never sold, and I want to say that was back in the 70s, and nobody obviously ever bought it or anything like that, and they were trying to salvage some costs with it. So what they did was they added some muscle to it, and they made up a generic thing called He-Man, and they played on the I guess it was the popularity of the Conan movie that had just come out, but they geared it towards kids. Long story short, it was a big success. But if you noticed with the cartoons, every single guy that they had looked similar. Like some of the guys' heads were the same with more than one character. Like I remember they had this one guy, it was Beast Man. He had the same head as like another guy. It was Moss Man, and like the same body. They just changed the color. And some of the other guys, like their legs and whatnot, were the same as other characters. Like only like their head would be different or something like that, or the coloration on the actual character. And every episode they'd introduce a new guy and they try to sell another product. Long story short, I want to say they only had like 4 or 5 different molds that they were making these guys out of, and out of those 4 or 5 different molds, they made like 60 different characters. I mean, I don't know exactly how many molds it was, but they definitely used the same molds over and over again, and they piggybacked, and they were able to mass produce these dolls at a very, very limited cost. And I want to say, when everything was said and done, Masters of the Universe, the actual franchise, was worth like over $1 billion. There was a up and then there was a down to it, obviously. I remember, like as I got older, you'd see the little dolls for sale. You get like 3 for $5 or something. But initially, I want to say they were like $20, if I remember correctly. I was about 4 years old when it was popular, but I want to say they were extremely expensive. So He-Man would probably be, for me, one of the biggest influences in my life as far as fitness and just wanting to look a certain way. I'm sure there's a lot of people my age, younger, and maybe even a little bit older that feel the same way. I know other people out there in the fitness industry have definitely brought up Masters of the Universe as an influential part of their fitness career. But it's definitely, there's something about that 80s genre, that 80s, 90s. Like if you can even think back to the wrestling and some of the other things that were geared towards kids back in the 80s and early 90s. Like I was showing my son the other day some old clips from wrestling that they used to have on Saturday. The Ultimate Warrior sitting there about to have a brain aneurysm, and for me, that was what I watched at his age at 5 years old. And it's funny, but looking at that now, my wife was like, "What the hell are you showing this kid? This guy's nuts." But to me, that was Saturday morning cartoon. That's what came on, and I would watch that with my dad or my brother or whatever, and then we probably end up getting into a fight or something, you know, trying to imitate the wrestlers. But that's to show you how much different times are today versus when they were 20, 30 years ago. Nowadays, you got like, you know, I don't even know what they got, like Bob the Builder, and I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that my kids watch, Caillou and all these other little characters like that stuff. I did not see that kind of like entertainment for kids when I was growing up. What I watched, and I'm sure a lot of other people that can definitely vouch for this watch, would be He-Man or G.I. Joe. You were usually into one of the two. You liked Superman, you liked Thundercats, then there was Brave Star, and the things that, and of course wrestling, but the things all these guys had in common was they all had great looking physiques and they all kicked ass. And that was just something that was, I guess it embeds in your head, and maybe not physically kicking someone's ass, but if you think about it, like adversity in your life, like even like the Rocky movies. I want to say the Rocky where he fought the 6'8" Russian. That one came out when I want to say I was like 5 or 6 or something like that. And like that adversity is more, I guess, what's being embedded in your head to kick that adversity's ass. And I think that has definitely spilled over, because if you look at a lot of people now in their 30s, they're really doing well with business. You see a lot of guys that are in great shape. They've got you know, their businesses are put together. They got everything going on. They get up, they're grinding. I mean, I guess that's not for everybody, but I attribute a lot of that, what you're seeing today with a lot of the, I guess it would be the younger generation, it'd be the guys in their 30s and whatnot. That I would attribute what they were exposed to as kids growing up, that kind of embedded in their head to be winners and sit there and give it your all. And I think that we're seeing a lot of the, I guess, the ramifications of that with just the way things have kind of exploded with the fitness industry and people doing very, very well with their businesses or their careers or whatever the case may be. I think that is something that's definitely been a beneficial thing. Again, who knows what's going to happen in another 20 years when my kids are out there and my kids are in their 30s. I don't know, you know, if there's going to be a change, or who knows what the world's going to look like then. But I definitely attribute things like Masters of the Universe, like the old wrestling. I know the newer wrestling is a little bit different than it was back when I was growing up. You know, some people like that. I like the older style better, but you know, some people like the other style. It's not saying it's bad. It's just I'm more partial to the older style. But I think things like that have definitely benefited people now, and you're definitely seeing that. And I think that's a huge feather in the hat of the fitness industry, because it's definitely showing up nowadays, and you're definitely seeing it. Have a good one, guys. Later.